Okay, imagine that you are a 5 or 6 year old kid who is on a family vacation entering a SeaWorld theme park for the very first time. Today marks a rite of passage that not many kids in America get to experience. You are so excited to see all the wildlife here that is not the squirrels and birds in your backyard, but mostly you are excited about the killer whales. As you sit anxiously in your seat, heart pumping with adrenaline, you hear the announcer come over, welcoming you to Shane Moose Stadium. Unfortunately, that was just an imagination. And unfortunately, when you are that young, you are too naive to understand that SeaWorld is not an ethically or morally right place. Today, I'm here to talk to you about SeaWorld. Today, we will go over the film of Blackfish. This is a documentary that is available on Netflix if you're ever interested in watching it. We'll go over the behavior of orcas at SeaWorld, what SeaWorld is doing to help, but why people are still outraged about it. Starting off, we'll go over some facts about SeaWorld. This picture is a parking lot at SeaWorld in the yellow, and this little blue dot right there is where the orcas lived their lives for 30 years. SeaWorld opened up in 1964 in San Diego, California. There are currently 3 national parks in the United States, including San Diego, California, San Antonio, Texas, and Orlando, Florida. SeaWorld has 11 million annual visitors a year, and they have 22 killer whales throughout their 3 parks. Starting off with the film of Blackfish, this was a 2013 documentary based off of SeaWorld. It goes over basically why we shouldn't have SeaWorld and what it can do to whales in captivity. It shows that these whales are wild animals and they are not to do performances and stuff. There has never been killings in the wild from the killer whales. Since there has been captivity, there have been 4 fatalities. The first one was on February 20th, 1991. Her name was Kelty Burns and she was just 20 years old. She worked at Sealand, which was in Canada. When she had got done feeding Tilkium, her foot had slipped into the pool, and he had grabbed her and dragged her under. She would resurface 3 times before she actually died. After that, the park closed in November, and they sold their whales to SeaWorld, where there was a second attack not even 10 years later, 27-year-old Daniel Dukes on July 6, 1999. He had stayed after hours at SeaWorld and had stripped naked and gotten into Tilkium's sleeping pod. Nobody found him until morning, when Tilkium had him on his back, showing him off so all could see. The third attack was in Spain. 29-year-old Alexis Martinez died on Christmas Eve of 2009. It happened at Loro Parque in Spain. This isn't owned by SeaWorld, but SeaWorld did help open it and did donate their orcas and train their trainers. Alexis is the male on the left, and he had died by Quito, who had dragged him under. They had called his fiancée an hour after the attack and said that there has been an incident with the whales, but that he is okay. When she got there, she soon realized he was not okay. She went to go see him, and the autopsy revealed that it was not an accident, it was a brutal attack. Not even 2 months later, the most famous death at SeaWorld happened. 40-year-old Dawn Brancho died February 24th, 2010. She was a 40-year-old senior trainer at SeaWorld. She was feeding Tilkium and rehearsing tricks just by herself without a spotter, which is not allowed. He went to go do a trick correctly, but did not come back when she blew her whistle. This probably agitated him when she didn't reward him with food. After that, she went to go lay down with him, but Tilkium wanted to play. He grabbed her arm and dragged her under. By the time she resurfaced, it was too late. And then the video shows some attacks at SeaWorld that didn't lead to fatalities.
Probably led to what I think is a psychosis.
All whales in captivity are all psychologically traumatized. It's not just Tilkium. If you were in a bathtub for 25 years, don't you think you'd get a little psychotic?
There has been 100 reported accidents at SeaWorld that have not led to fatalities. Some of the ones you saw in the video are people getting dragged under, people getting ripped off stage, people getting jumped on or smashed in between a wall or 2 whales. Moving on to our next point, we'll go over the orca's behavior. Orca's behavior is based off of 4 things: their environment, their food, their socialization, and their mental stimulation. Orcas can swim up to 100 miles a day and to a depth of 200 feet. They only spend 20% of their time at the surface. But in captivity, their deepest tank is 40 feet, and they spend almost 95% of their time at the surface. And with their food, orcas can eat up to 30 different types of fish, seals, sea lions, whales, sharks, squid, but at SeaWorld they get fed dead herring because it's convenient and easy for the trainers to give them, but it does absolutely nothing for their health. And as for their socialization, unlike many mammals, orcas stay with their calves and their mothers for their whole lives. Their pods can run up to 30 to 40 whales, but when you go to capture them from the wild, they separate the mom and the young and only take the young and take them into captivity. Also, when you're in captivity, you don't get to choose your pod, so you don't get along with the other fish that you're with. They're not from the same place and you don't know who they are. Experts go to say that they have their own language, so they don't understand each other. There's a 71% separation rate between mothers and calves in SeaWorld. And as for their mental stimulation, they're very intelligent animals and love problem solving and they love playing games. But when they're in their pods, they don't get to play games and they don't get to problem solve. They lack mental stimulation and it leads to stress, aggression, and depression. So what is SeaWorld doing to help these animals? Well, USA Today says that the killer whales currently living at facilities will be the last and they will stop breeding them immediately. SeaWorld will turn its attention to new inspiring natural orca encounters with educational purposes and emphasizing enrichment, exercise, and health. And the orca shows will be ending in San Diego by 2017 and the San Antonio and Orlando by 2019. Well, this all sounds like positives to me, so why are people still outraged? Well, the orcas there still have to live out their lives. Orcas can live anywhere from 60 to 100 years in the wild, but at SeaWorld they only live 30 years. PETA offered a proposal of moving them to sanctuaries such as sea pods in the ocean so they can have natural wave moves and natural ocean-like water. But SeaWorld just kind of ignored them and said that they will be keeping them in the tanks. And lastly, it took so long for SeaWorld to realize that what they were doing was wrong. We had 4 people dead, hundreds of attacks and traumatization on the people. We had 24 whales dead, and a lifetime for the whales of psychological, emotional, and mental trauma. So a recap of what I went over today. We talked about the film Blackfish and what it had and how it affected SeaWorld. The behavior of orcas at SeaWorld and how they're not made to be in captivity. What SeaWorld is doing differently, but why we should still be outraged about it. I hope you now understand that this is not a place for a family vacation and not a place for killer whales.